Hey guys, welcome back to part 2. So by now you should have the body of your costume complete, so we're going to move on to the hood. So for the hood we're going to be using that main color that you use for the body and a 4.5mm crochet hook. So for row 1 of the hood, the pattern says to join the yarn at the bottom of the neckline, and then we're just going to be placing single crochets almost all the way around the neckline. But we're going to be leaving about 1 to 2 centimeters of space at the bottom of the neckline. So, join your yarn with a slip stitch, chain 1, and single crochet until there's approximately 1 to 2 centimeters of space from where you joined. For this round, you also need to make sure that you place an even number of single crochets around the neckline. So here I've placed 40 single crochets around the neckline, and I've left a space between the beginning and the end of the row that is about 2 centimeters. So the pattern also says to place stitch markers in the 2 middle stitches. If you don't have actual stitch markers like me, I just use paper clips. I find that this is the easiest way for when you have to be moving the stitch markers around often, which we will be. So I placed them in the 20th and the 21st stitch. For row 2, you're going to be working extended single crochets again. So chain 2, turn your work and decrease over the next 2 stitches by working an extended single crochet together. And then place 1 extended single crochet into each stitch until you reach that stitch marker. So once you reach the stitch marker, you're going to place 2 extended single crochets into that marked stitch. And make sure that you place your markers into the new middle stitches. Then you're going to place 1 extended single crochet into each stitch until the last 2 stitches where you're going to be placing a decrease over them. So you should still end up with 40 stitches in row 2, because even though you're decreasing by 2, you're also increasing by 2 in the middle. For row 3, chain 2, turn your work and place 1 extended single crochet into each stitch, and just be sure to replace your stitch markers. So for the next 4 rows, you're going to be repeating rows 2 and 3. So for row 4, decreasing the first and last 2 stitches and place 2 extended single crochets into the marked stitches. And for row 5, place 1 extended single crochet into each stitch, and so on. So in row 7, you should still only have 40 stitches. So here's row 7 of the hood completed. For row 8, I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and decrease over the next 2 stitches. I'm going to place 1 extended single crochet into each stitch until I reach the stitch before the marked stitch. Now I'm going to decrease over the next stitch and the marked stitch by extended single crocheting together. And I'm going to do the same thing over the next 2 stitches. Be sure to place your stitch markers back into those 2 middle stitches. Then you're going to place 1 extended single crochet into each stitch until the last 2 stitches where you'll be placing a decrease over them. So since I decreased 4 times in row 8, I have a total of 36 stitches now. So for row 9, I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and place 1 extended single crochet into each stitch across. So for the next 8 stitches, I'm just going to be repeating rows 8 and 9. So for row 10, I'm going to decrease in the first 2 and the last 2 stitches, as well as over the marked stitches. And for row 11, I'm just going to place 1 extended single crochet into each stitch across. So for every decrease row, you need to make sure that you're decreasing by 4. So here is row 17 completed. Now I'm going to attach the top of the hood together like so. And I'm going to attach the hood by slip stitching. Then I'm going to trim my yarn and pull through. So now I'm going to place a row of single crochets all around the hood, and I'm still using that green yarn and the 4.5mm hook. So I'm going to join with the slip stitch at the base of the hood and single crochet into that same stitch or chain 1. You can do either. I literally switch it up all the time. I have in this video. To finish off the hood, I'm going to take the purple yarn, or whatever accent yarn you're using, and that 4.5mm hook, and I'm going to be placing half double crochets all around the hood in the stitches we just created with the green yarn. So slip stitch to join at the bottom of the hood, chain 2, and place 1 half double crochet into each stitch around. Slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 to join and fasten off. So now it's time to make the spikes. Okay, so to be honest, I got pretty confused reading this part of the pattern. That's probably my own fault, but I'm kind of just gonna wing it for this part. I think I kind of get the gist of what I'm supposed to do, but it's probably not 100% what the written instructions are telling me to do. So I'm gonna be using that 4.5mm hook and the purple yarn, and I'm going to be single crocheting down the middle of the body for 2 rows. So at the bottom of the costume, there's a total of 28 stitches. So I've marked the 14th and the 15th stitch here. So the pattern says to use double yarn for the spikes, and because we'll be using a 4.5mm hook, there might be a little bit of an issue with the yarn slipping off the hook, but we will do our best. Okay, so when working with double yarn, you're just going to be crocheting with 2 strands instead of 1. So you can either take 2 different balls of yarn, or you can find the 2 ends of the yarn from the same ball, or like the inside of, or the outside. So it's completely up to you, and if you have 2 balls of the same yarn. So you're just going to combine the 2 strands of yarn together, and now you're going to imagine them as one. So create a slip knot, pull your hook through the yarn, and begin crocheting as you normally would. Attach a yarn to the costume with a slip stitch, chain 1, and place 1 single crochet into each row. And then I'll just keep checking that I'm crocheting a straight line down the back. So as you can see, working with the double yarn creates a bulkier and a sturdier stitch. Okay, so here I realized that instead of crocheting on the 14th row, I should have started on the 15th. Chain 1, turned, and then single crocheted back down the 14th row. So now I'm going to pull out all of my work and fix this. Okay, so here is the correct row of single crochets. Now I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and single crochet back down to the end of the costume. And you just want to make sure that each single crochet you place lines up with the single crochet from that first row. So here's my second row of single crochets completed. I'm just going to slip stitch into that same stitch I just single crocheted into and fasten off. Okay, so I have no idea if this is what I was supposed to do, but this is what I've done and I'm going to make it work. So to make the first spike, I am still going to be working with double yarn, and I'm going to make a slip knot, and then I'm going to single crochet into the first 10 stitches. But I'm going to be working into both rows, kind of like to join that base together. So I'm going to slip stitch, chain 1, this counts as my first stitch. Then I'm going to place 1 single crochet into the next 9 stitches while single crocheting the 2 rows together. So now I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and I'm going to decrease over the next 2 stitches with a single crochet together. Then I'm going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch until I reach the last 2 stitches where I will be decreasing again. Chain 1, turn, and decrease over the next 2 stitches, single crochet into the last 2 in the row, and decrease again. So just repeat this process until you can only decrease 1. So there's basically 1 stitch left at the top. And then, so once I've finished my spike, I'm going to chain 1, trim my yarn, and pull through. And I just left a long tail in case I want to make any adjustments. So there you go, your first spike is done. We're getting those dragon vibes, or maybe more like dinosaur, but it doesn't matter, whatever. So now I'm going to make another spike, but with a base of 8 single crochets. So we're gonna make spikes with different bases because we want to create a bunch of different size spikes. So make a slip knot and join with the slip stitch into that 10th stitch. The stitches are going to be sharing a stitch because sharing is caring, and we don't want the spikes to look too spaced out. So now just repeat the exact same process that we did before. You're just going to chain 1 and single crochet into the next 7 stitches. So just decrease at the beginning and the end of the row until you reach 1 stitch at the top. So here's the second spike completed. So for the third spike, I'm going to start with a base of 6 single crochets. And once again, I'm going to be slip stitching to join in that stitch that I ended in so that the spikes stay close together. So I'm going to chain 1 and single crochet into the next 5 stitches. And I'm going to repeat that same process to create the third spike. So here's a third spike completed. So now I'm going to create one more spike with a base of 6. Here's a fourth spike completed. I'm going to do one more spike on the body, but first I'm going to weave in all of my loose ends. Okay, so now that I've weaved in all of my loose ends, it is looking a lot better now. And now I'm just going to create that last spike. So this spike is going to have a base of 4 single crochets. So I'm going to make a slip knot and attach that yarn in the last stitch I worked in. Then I'm going to chain 1 and place 3 more single crochets. So I'm going to place the first single crochet into the last stitch of that row that I created for the spikes. And then I'm going to place 2 more at the very end of the costume where that ribbing effect that we did earlier is. So then I'm going to complete the spike. Okay, so here's the 5th little mini spike completed. The body of your costume, you should have a 10 base spike, 1 8 base spike, 2 6, and 1 4. So now it's time to spike out the hood. So I don't want the hood to be as bulky, so I'm going to make 1 row of single crochets down the length of the hood. And I'm not going to be working with double yarn anymore. So I'm just going to join where the seam is from that slip stitch join I did and work a row all the way to the neckband. So just like I did down the length of the back, I'm just going to keep checking I'm crocheting in a straight line down the hood. So once I've reached the neckband, I'm going to begin my first spike. So I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and create a spike with a base of 10, just like we did on the body of the costume. There's the first spike completed. So for the second spike, I'm going to make it with a base of 8 single crochets. So one difference between what I did for the spikes on the body and what I'm going to do on the hood is that I'm not going to be shirring the stitches anymore. So I'm going to attach my yarn with a slip stitch into the stitch next to the one I last worked in. So this creates a bit more separation between the spikes. For my third spike, I'm going to create another one with a base of 8. Then I'm going to finish off the hood with the 4th spike once again with a base of 8. So here's the costume completed. I'm just going to weave in all of the ends and try this sucker on. Okay, so here is the finished dog costume. Lola's very excited. Okay, we're going to give you half a treat for doing nothing so far. Oh, I can't break it up. Can you just take a little bite? No, don't take the whole thing. And turn you into a dragon. I'm excited. Oh, okay. So now that I've captured the victim, it is time to, I worked so hard on this. Okay, we're just gonna, there's her head. There's one paw. There's another paw. Oh my God. Lola, first thoughts? Okay. Okay, I think it's a bit heavy. Let's take her hood off. Okay. What do you think, Lola? You want to wear it for Halloween?
Ask you how you are, you don't just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just